All right, so let's go. Yes, it's been a very long time since I uploaded any videos to my channel or did any streams, but I am doing it today because I am prepping for GauntletCon. It's going to be this weekend. I think there's maybe still some slots open, so if you're interested in playing some online RPGs, go check it out. It's called GauntletCon, as you can see in the stream title. So, what am I doing specifically? I am working on my scenario for All Systems Nominal, my mecha RPG that I will be running in a 3-hour session at GauntletCon this weekend. So this scenario is based off of Front Mission, based off of the events of essentially Front Mission 1 or Front Mission 5, depending on how you look at it. That is the second Huffman conflict. So the specific scenario that I advertised in the game listing was this. It is August 9th, 2091, and the Second Huffman conflict nears an end. The Oceania Community Union Ground Defense Forces, or OCU-GDF, have launched Operation Eagle Tears, a massive offensive to finally push the forces of the United States to the New Continent, or USN, off Huffman Island and into the Pacific Ocean. The soldiers of the USN Army fight a desperate rearguard action near Fort Monas to stall the OCU advance while they wait for reinforcements from the USN 24 Fleet, expected to arrive at 0800 tomorrow morning. While the forces of the USN Army's 214th Armored Division engage the enemy in Fort Monas itself, your unit, the USN Army's Dust Talkers, have been scrambled from the 24th Fleet and sent by airdrop to harry the supply lines of OCU forces between Morgan Fortress to the north and Fort Monas to the south. Move fast, hit hard, and watch your surroundings. The line of battle is shifting rapidly, and you could easily find yourself behind enemy lines. May you always be at home in the dusk. So this scenario basically takes place in the sort of midpoint of Front Mission 1 or the end of the first section of Front Mission 5, just as the OCU is about to attack Fort Monas and the Second Huffman conflict is about to come to a close. So I was thinking about how I should do GM prep for this game, and I started out with an operational situation. It's kind of something that's mentioned in the game itself, in the game text. So I figured, why not formalize it as part of my GM prep? So what's going on? Well, the OCU is pressing in on Fort Monas. Morgan Fortress, under General Kirkland's command, is about to fall to the Canyon Crows. USN forces will fall back in disarray towards Fort Monas and Rupidus through the mountains. The OCU Armored Cavalry is in hot pursuit of retreating USN forces, and the mission is first to keep supply lines open, but that will change to holding terrain until the reinforcements from the 24th Fleet arrive. So the mission objectives that the unit will be given at the start of the session are not going to stay. They're not going to stick. They're going to change once the unit is actually deployed, because the Canyon Crows are going to take Morgan Fortress, and things are going to rapidly deteriorate for the USN forces. So what are the enemy forces going to be about? Like, what are the OCU forces going to include? There's going to be some recon helicopters with sensor packages. There will be a handful of recon drones flying up in the air. Light armored vehicles carrying infantry with anti-tank missiles. Heavy Wanzers and transported by trucks. It's because this is a very mountainous area. So if you look online for an image of Huffman Island, I think this is a pretty good one here. you can see that the like Belchka is here, Morgan Fortress is up here. This is a very heavily mountainous area, and Fort Monas is down here. So the area of operation is going to be between these 2 points, right? I think there's some other... Yeah, this is like from the game itself. You can see that this is a highly mountainous area by Fort Monas. Sorry, by Morgan Fortress. So the operations will be happening in the mountains. The USN forces are going to be falling back, and heavy, like the Wanzers, enemy Wanzers, are going to be in pursuit of the USN forces, but in the initial stage of the operation, it's probably going to be the case that Wanzers just are not fast enough to give chase by themselves. So they're probably going to be transported by trucks, as you often see in front mission games, right? Like in front mission 1, there's like Huey's truck. In front mission 3, very often the player units are transported by trucks. And then they will, you know, deploy, get off the trucks, and fight. But the lead element of the enemy forces is probably going to be light armored vehicles. So I'm thinking the initial engagement is probably going to be a combination of recon helicopters, light armored vehicles, and infantry versus the player unit. Then maybe the second engagement, which will kind of round out the session, is when the enemy Wanzer elements catch up with the armored cavalry, which is leading the way, and there's more of a kind of heavy armored standoff to deal with. Okay, so 731 is a GM technique that's been sort of developed by Jason Cordova. It is pretty straightforward, quite useful, something I often use for Dungeon World, that kind of thing. And what is it about? Well, explicitly, it's about having 7 set pieces, NPCs or encounters you can drop in anywhere, 3 descriptive details about each in terms of sight and sound, and 1 way of embodying them at the table: voice, mannerisms, or noises. Okay, so I think I might kind of break this down into a little bit more of a specific format to use with All Systems Nominal. So the way that this game functions is that you have engagement roles, those lead into engagements. So I can't determine in advance how each engagement is going to go. So, you know, the operational situation is really bad for the player unit, but that doesn't mean that every engagement the players get is going to be bad, because there's a dice roll involved, right? That's going to alter how that turns out. We can see this here. The engagement roll, there's questions like, is the team well supplied? Does the team have reliable and relevant intelligence? Is the enemy especially vulnerable to the team's approach? Is the team engaging a strongly held enemy position? Do the team's mecha have a significant speed advantage over the enemy? Does the approach involve an exceedingly complex battle plan, and is the broader operational situation in the team's favor? So certainly it is not in their favor. But it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to get a bad engagement roll. So we can't decide in advance what each engagement is going to look like, right? We can't sort of do the D&D thing of setting up each encounter specifically. So I think what I might do instead of coming up with all of the details of every encounter is to come up with some locations, like engagement Locations. And then maybe I'll split that into engagements and... No, I think just locations is good. Locations is good. Because I don't want to come into it and predetermine what these locations are going to be used for. So we have enemy forces, we have locations, and then I think we will have something like... Probably makes sense... Got the operational situation, the enemy forces, and the locations. Do we need anything else? Clocks? I think maybe clocks. We want some clocks here. Yes. Okay. Operational situation, enemy forces, locations, clocks. I think we want probably an intro scene. Yeah. And then we probably want NPCs. So intro scene, NPCs, enemy forces, locations, and clocks. So obviously 731, you get 7 things. And I think I'm going to use essentially 731, but I'm going to spread it out over these different things. So the first thing that we're going to deal with is the intro scene. All right. So we are going to start out at the on board a ship in the USN 24th Fleet. So USN 24th Fleet. It is making its way towards Huffman Island. And it's going to, so we're going to say, now, trying to think about how this goes in the game itself. I'm going to go look up the timeline. This doesn't have to be exactly as it goes in Front Mission 1 or Front Mission 5. However, it's a good thing to think about. So here we go. Operation Eagle Tears. So the okay, so it looks like the engagement in Fort Monas begins at 10:40 a.m. The attack by the Canyon Crows on Morgan Fortress takes place sometime between 9:34 and 10:40 a.m. So it's sometime within that hour. So we're looking at, before we do the 3 things, I just want to get down some details that to help frame my thinking. So this is going to be, we'll say they're probably leaving the 24th Fleet around 0600. Depart 24th Fleet. Does that make sense? Maybe 0700. Yeah. We'll say they arrive, yeah. Let's say they arrive. Ooh, actually, now that I think about it, no, it makes sense to leave it later than that. 0800, they're going to pile into some carrier aircraft and do like a halo drop into the area of operations. So they'll probably arrive like, let's say, 10:30, arrive on Huffman Island. Okay. So that's after, this is going to be kind of the end of the intro scene, right? The important thing to note is like they're leaving in the early morning. They've probably been prepping for a few hours. Probably got up like 4 in the morning, and are ready to go. So let's see here. Think we can. So what else is important here? We're gonna show the Vonzers loading into the air carrier, the carrier aircraft. What else do we need to show? Oh yeah. Okay, so there's gonna be Vonzers moving up onto the flight deck by elevator. Very much like we see with the Eclipse in Front Mission 5. And piling into the carrier aircraft. With retro thrusters. Yeah, retro thrusters for drop purposes. Okay. Okay. So that's gonna be on the ship. Then we'll have some kind of scene maybe radio chatter with command about the operation. Maybe some reflections from PCs before the drop. And let's see. So, okay. Cool. Yeah, so I think it'll definitely be daylight by the time they drop. Drop by daylight. So that's a dangerous thing to do. But they're being scrambled, right? Okay, so we need to show the urgency. So I think we're starting to get to the 731 part, the 3 things we can focus in on. So 1 will be the flurry of activity amongst the 24 fleet. You'll see that. So that's going to be sailors, aviators, and soldiers running around, planes taking off, missiles firing, cruise missiles firing, okay, good. Action, and yeah, that's going to be like also action in the Vonzer hangar. Although most of the Vonzers that are being transported by the fleet are not actually going to be able to participate in the operation. They're too far away, and only the special forces like the Dusthawkers are going to be deployed into the area. Okay. We'll see crews fitting the retro thrusters onto the team's Vonzers. And we'll see them Vonzers emerge from the hangar by elevator into the tropical sun and enter the aircraft and take off from the deck. Okay, that's 3 things. Cool. Next, the one thing, a way to embody it by at the table, voices, mannerisms, or noises. I think I think it's important to focus in on the noises here. Clanking of boots against the deck. The shouts of activity. The roar of jet engines. Okay. and missiles. Cool. Okay, so that's going to be the intro. So let's think about NPCs. Who are important NPCs here? Maybe... the pilot. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it's more like... Yeah. Like the AWACS officers? Operators? Yeah. Feel like they're going to be the people who are in contact with the unit more so than the pilot. Okay. So there's going to be an NPC who is an AWACS operator. They are going to... So, okay, so what kind of person is this? Okay. we'll say maybe this is a... Oh... Sorry, I'm thinking quite hard here about what kind of officer this person will be. Okay, I think this is going to be a captain. Okay, so the AWACS operator, a captain. Ooh, what's their name? What is their name going to be? I think it's maybe a guy. Captain Miller. Okay, so Captain Miller is going to be the relay between them and the command. He's going to give operational updates. What can we say about this guy? Maybe... I think maybe he's soft-spoken. I think he's... Oh, he's new to the job. And he's also... What's a third thing to say about him? I think he's maybe a little bit... He's a little bit over-eager. He's gonna talk too much. Embodying him speak a little quietly and quickly, maybe a little bit harder, a little bit hard to follow, a little bit hard to hear. And then, you know, if the players remind him, like, oh, I'm having trouble hearing you or something, then he'll sort of snap into his training. But he's got some nerves going on. Captain Miller does. He's probably used to do some kind of other job. He's been because of the sudden onset of the war and the deployment of the 24th Fleet into the area, has been assigned to this duty. Okay. Do I need any other NPCs? Maybe not. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, so that's our NPCs finished. This is mostly going to be a combat-focused thing. Okay, so now let's take a look at what we need to think about in terms of combat and how to work the enemy units into that. Okay, so I'm just going to read through this and then carry on. Combat in all systems nominal focuses on tactical position and teamwork. It proceeds from an engagement role to a series of engagement stages. The highest ranked pilot, the commanding officer or CO in the pilot's unit, declares a goal after the engagement role. The GM reveals all enemy units to the pilots unless otherwise specified by tags such as cloaked, invisible, stealthy, etc. So that will probably be relevant to this first engagement. Not necessarily though. I mean, it's the infantry may or may not be stealthed, or sorry, like camouflaged. The engagement stage is resolved, and a pilot who had a disadvantageous range in the last stage then selects the next maneuver. Okay. Combat ends after 2 rounds or when one side's position is reduced to 0. So, you do the engagement roll. You get, if you get a miss, you get a position of 3. A mixed success is a position of 5. A success is a 6, and a critical is an 8. The enemy position is always equal to 10 minus the pilot position. Maneuvers. So the pilot in charge of an engagement stage selects the maneuvers the unit will take based on their position. Any pilots who succeed on their roles narrate their contribution to the success of the maneuver according to one of the prompts in italics. The prompts are not the final say of narration in combat and can be followed by free form description. Haha. I knew there's a reason why I'm hiring an editor. Okay, so you can do a frontal assault, an ambush, ranged bombardment, pincer attack, so on and so on. All of these maneuvers go on to the engagement stage. The pilot in charge of the stage selects the maneuver. If it has a special effect, it is resolved. The pilots select their ranges based on the restrictions listed on the maneuver. The unit total of the first stat, weight or speed, listed in the maneuver is compared to the enemy unit's total of the second stat. Okay, so all our enemy units need are weight and speed listings. The GM checks if any environmental or situational factors improve or worsen the pilot's unit position. If the pilot units outnumber the enemies, each pilot takes +1d. If they are outnumbered, they take -1d. So some numbers on the enemy units would be important. So numbers, speed, and weight. If a pilot's weapon is in optimal range, they add +1d to the dice pool. It's not necessary for the enemy units. Each pilot then declares if they have a tag that can aid in the maneuver according to the fiction. For each such tag, add +1d to their dice pool. The GM checks if the terrain each pilot is on will improve or worsen their position and adjusts the dice pool accordingly. Pilots can either choose to spend edge or overward boost to increase their dice pools. In ambushes, pincer attacks, and retreats, pilots with jump jets can overward boost twice. Each pilot rolls their dice. And on a partial success, pilots suffer a moderate consequence. On a miss, they suffer a severe consequence. The moderate consequences can be added by the GM before or after the following step, contributing to player narration. So each successful pilot describes or selects a narrative prompt from the maneuvers list and uses it to describe how they succeed. Modifiers from the selected maneuver are added to position, and combat proceeds to the second stage or ends if one side is reduced to 0 position. So the combat conclusion. Okay. Cool. So what I need is numbers, speed, and weight for the enemies, and that's it. Okay, cool. So this is going to be interesting to deal with, considering yeah, not all of these units are Vonzers, so this is going to be pretty interesting for sure. Okay, so we will say the recon helicopters with sensor packages. I don't think there's any more than 3 for sure. Let's say 3 at the most. So most, or 3 max. It's going to depend on the way the engagement roll shakes out to determine how many units actually show up for the first encounter. A handful of recon drones, so there's maybe like, this is an interesting thing. Like, we'll say there's 2, but they only affect the overall position. These are way too high up in the sky to actually be a part of the specific engagement. Light armored vehicles carrying infantry. Okay, so light armored vehicles carrying infantry. And then we have the infantry themselves. Okay, so the infantry of anti-tank missiles. We'll say there's probably like... Oh... So like 5 max in terms of the LAVs. Infantry, that basically works out to... it probably makes sense to go to like the platoon size. No. Yeah, squads. So we'll say there's like probably 5 max infantry squads. And the heavy Vonzers transported by trucks, we'll say there's 6 max. Okay. All right. So okay. These enemy forces are going to have recon helicopters will be at so they're the fastest speed for sure. which means they are very fast with a speed rating of 4. Okay, so they're very fast, speed, very fast, 4. Weight is light, 1. Yeah. Tags. They are spotters, and they have sensors. Yeah, and they're also airborne, right? Okay, cool. Things to describe them. I think they're fairly they're sleek. Hug the terrain and come over rises. Okay. Recon drones, not actually significant in any major way, so we don't have to get into that too much. The light armored vehicles, would say their speed is probably fast or normal. No, fast, definitely fast. These are like wheeled armored units. Fast, speed 3, like similar to like strikers or something like that. Their weight, we'll say, is probably still light. Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely light units still. Yeah. So it makes that 1. Now, normally that's not how a mecha will work out, but because they're not mecha, I'm willing to give that some fudge, or like some fudge room, some space to tweak. Their tags, so they are troop transports, ooh. Wheeled. So that means they're like bad in the rain, because the armor weighs them down into the ground. And they are, let's say, like versatile. Yeah. How to describe them? I think they're pretty loud. I mean, you know, that engine noise. Tippy. A little bit top heavy because they have a turret on top. And I think probably one thing to note about them is that Um, oh, they stick to the roads. Yeah. Okay. Next, we have infantry. Their speed is probably normal at best. No, like, not even. Like, speed is pretty garbage, I'd imagine. They're slow. Like, they're definitely slow. Their weight is, of course, light. They kind of suck. But they can be oops. That's not right. I can't English. Camouflaged, yeah. Okay. They're camouflaged. They, so they have, like, I would say they have, like, low ammo. They definitely have an ammo tag. But their weapons are also definitely, like, they do, high explosive damage. And how to describe them? Or actually, you know what? Probably is better to describe this here is they can go. What do you call that when you're good at scaling mountains and stuff? If I look up mountain goats. Sure-footed. Does it say climbers? Like they're really slow at moving horizontally, but they're really good at moving vertically. And then how to describe them, I would say probably they're quick to retreat. Cautious. And they are also numerous, right? Okay. And finally, we have some Vonzers. So these truck transported Vonzers. I've been looking at some of the common OCU Vonzers in Front Mission 1. Actually, you know what? I should probably look at Front Mission 5. That's the place to go for the early game. What OCU Vonzers show up there? Walrus, Enyo, Kyojun. Those seem to be like the main fighting Vonzers. So we'll say, so the Walrus is the main assault unit. The Kyojun is the main gunner unit, and then the Enyo is the main launcher unit. Okay, so it's gonna be so it'll probably be Walrus is the most numerous. And in case you're wondering what these look like, that's what a Walrus looks like. So that's the standard unit they're going to be using. And then we also have the Kyojun. I have this thing. Yeah, that's what that looks like. And then finally we have the Enyo. It's kind of bulbous looking thing. All right. Yeah, so let's go with that. That sounds good to me. So the Walrus, Enyo, and Kyojun transported by trucks. Okay. So we don't need to say heavy Vonzers. We can just say Vonzers. I don't think we necessarily need to differentiate each of these. Although maybe we should. Maybe we'll break it down. Okay, so the Walrus, its speed is normal. So that puts it at 2, I think. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, man. Yeah, I had a little bit of an issue with my manual mute on my mic there. So yeah, so Walrus has a move of 6 in front mission, and Enyo has a move of 4, and a Kyojin also has a move of 4. So I think these are both going to be heavy. So this is going to be slow. Speed of 1. Weight is heavy, or no, what do you call that? Not heavy. Oh, here we go. Assault. The weight class is assault. It's a 4. Tags. Enyo. Fragile. Okay, so fragile, long range, launcher. Yeah, and it I think this is also quick to retreat, trouble with terrain. Then the final one is gonna be the Kyojin. So its speed will also be slow. Its weight is also assault. Its tags are interesting because the Kyojin was originally developed as an assault mech and then repurposed to be a gunner. So accurate, has an accurate tag. Durable, but has reload, right? And it is mid-range, and it's a heavy hitter. Okay. So those are the Vonzers. And I'm gonna have to, I think I'm gonna have to do something like when, oh no, when you do speed versus weight or whatever, you add up all of the scores. So yeah, each of these is gonna contribute in some way. Okay, cool. That's the enemy forces. Locations. Okay, so I think interesting. What should we implement here? What kind of locations are going to be interesting to use? So I think maybe we could have a mountain valley. We could have a mountain pass. How about a I don't know if there's a railway per se. No, it would make let's say there is a railroad bridge. Be a cool place. And then like maybe a canyon. Okay, those are enough locations for sure. So 3 things for the canyon. And we're looking here for descriptive details about each. So this is Huffman Island. I feel like the vegetation is up this high. So there's a lot of like scrub. Vegetation. Caves in the cliff sides. And like extreme elevation changes. Right. How to embody it. Maybe what's a sensory detail? Describe the echoes, right? Off the canyon walls. Okay. The railroad bridge. So I think it will be. What do you? Yeah, let's look at some vocabulary here for railroad bridges. Thinking about the one that's in Front Mission 1. Span plate girder designs. Okay. I think it's not quite what we're looking for here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this railroad bridge is going to have very long arch over a river canyon. It will have thin spans, and ooh, I think it will be somewhat wide because it's meant to carry like military equipment from Fort Monis to Morgan Fortress. And I think the sounds or the sensory detail here is probably the it's fragility. It's emphasize its thinness and the wind cross canyon. Okay. Mountain Pass. Yeah, I think this is probably a thing where, like, I'm thinking like the Crow's Nest Pass or something. Actually, wait, that's a low mountain pass. What am I thinking? Although that could also be interesting, yeah. Yeah, I kind of like that. Okay, so this is a low mountain pass. Low, broad mountain pass. Rolling foothills. Before tall mountains. Forested. I think the sensory detail here is probably just the panorama, the horizon. And I think in that case, ooh, the mountain valley could maybe have like a mining camp in it. Yeah. It has so like low, long buildings, portables. I think there are gravel roads, and I think it's mostly grasslands. Sensory detail is like the incongruity of the military vehicles in this civilian area. The profiles. Okay, so those are some locations that I can use. Cool. Clocks. I think there's definitely one. There's a retreat clock, USN retreat clock, for sure. So this is actually no, this is what you call in. I think these are in so in Blades in the Dark. I think these are probably racing clocks. So racing clocks. OCU advanced clock versus the USN retreat clock. There's going to be a mission clock, which will be countdown to the ceasefire, which players are not going to know about because nobody knew about that during the actual conflict. Racing clock, clocks, mission clock, and I think that's kind of it. That's what I got right now. And the last thing I want to do is objectives, yeah. Primary, secondary. So we'll have the initial objectives. And then we'll have the real objectives. Classic front mission. It feels very front mission 2, not front mission, not the other games. Okay, so the initial objectives, the primary objective will be to basically interdict no, prevent interdiction of supply shipments to Morgan Fortress. By destroying OCU raiders. Secondary objective. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Search and destroy for OCU raiders in the mountains around Morgan Fortress. Secondary objective is to defend USN supply shipments in the area. Okay, real objectives, the ones that are actually going to trigger once they land, it's going to be something different. The real objectives, so the primary objective will be to defend USN retreat column along the Morgan Highway from OCU pursuit. Secondary objective so to Fort Monis. Secondary objective will be to oh yeah, halt the OCU advance at the, what shall we call it? At the North Monis Pass. We'll add that. Okay. So if they can halt the OCU advance, then that is a secondary objective completed. Okay, so I think as far as the rest of my prep goes, I basically just need oh, I'm going to include a note here with the clock that the actual ceasefire happens at 4 p.m. Cool. And the last thing I need to do is just grab some images for for Roll20. So I'm gonna do that offline, I think. So there we go. We have a scenario prepped. I think this has given me some better ideas about what, with the updated rules, the GM prep is going to look like for all systems nominal. So that's cool. Helps with the game's development, not just the prep for GauntletCon. And for anyone who's watching this after the fact, thanks for watching. And maybe I'll have more prep for my operators game later in the week. Bye.